Then came an age that does not quite fit with what came before or after, around 2613 to 2494 BC. The fourth dynasty emerged, an era credited to kings like Snefru, Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure. Yet, something stands out. Before this period, we do not see this level of precision. After this period, we do not see it sustained. The Great Pyramid, millions of stones placed with astonishing accuracy. This is not gradual evolution. So, the question remains, where did this knowledge come from? Were these kings the creators or the inheritors, builders or preservers of something older? The fourth dynasty shows precision without precedent and without repetition. A moment in time where knowledge appears fully formed. How does a civilization move from early stone experimentation to near perfect execution, and then never quite return to it again? In the Pyramid of Honors, around 2350 BCE, the oldest known religious texts in the world emerged. Inside the chamber, walls covered from floor to ceiling in vertical columns of hieroglyphs. Once painted in Egyptian blue, the ceiling studded with golden stars. A sky brought underground. These were not stories. They were utterances. Over 200 of them. Words of protection, words of transformation, words of power. In Kemet, to speak, was to create. These texts guided the king through the unseen dangers of the Duat, ensuring his passage beyond the death. They protected the body, awakened the soul, and transformed the king into an AK, an eternal, radiant spirit. They spoke to the three dimensions of existence: the Ka, the life force; the Ba, the moving essence; and the AKH, the perfected being among the stars. The goal was not survival alone, but ascension, to become an imperishable star eternal in the cosmic order. Within these inscriptions were apotropaic words, formulas to repel unseen forces, to guard against chaos, to ensure safe passage through realms beyond the physical. Ata, Bu, Sia, records were kept. Priests assigned by duty, offerings measured in grain and meat, tools catalogued, rituals scheduled, spirituality and administration woven into one system. By the time these words were carved, the system was already complete. A knowledge so refined it could guide a king from earth to eternity. Not every giant of Kemet wore a crown. Some ruled through knowledge, through order, through the machinery of the state. In the sixth dynasty, around the reign of King Tati, one man rose above nearly all others: Mereruka. Vizier, priest, administrator, a man who stood just beneath the throne, yet helped hold the kingdom together. His tomb at Saqqara was not built like that of an ordinary official. It was vast, intricate, filled with scenes of labor, ritual, agriculture, scribes, and ceremony. Because Mereruka was more than a noble, he was evidence that Kemet's greatness did not rest on kings alone. It rested on systems, on administration, on sacred duty, on minds trained to preserve order in both the seen and the unseen. Through Mereruka, we do not just see a man, we see the state itself. More than 4,000 years before the modern lodge, there stood Mereruka, a master of order, structure, and sacred administration. In his tomb at Saqqara, he appears wearing the white apron, like kilt of elite office, a garment that in many traditions came to symbolize purity, labor, duty, and disciplined knowledge. He also stands in the ancient formal pose, left foot forward, a posture of motion, presence, and purposeful advancement. A stance later echoed in the visual language of ritual and initiation. George Washington II would later appear in a Masonic apron during the 1793 cornerstone laying of the U.S. Capitol. And then there is the number, Mereruka's tomb, 33 chambers. Modern, Scottish Rite, Freemasonry, 33 degrees. Coincidence? Perhaps. Continuity? Perhaps not directly, but the parallel remains striking. A tradition where building, symbolism, and sacred knowledge are never far apart. Around 2181 BCE, the 7th dynasty emerged in the shadows of collapse. A dynasty remembered more in king lists than in stone. Its monuments are nearly gone. Its rulers barely visible today. Not a golden age, but the fading echo of a kingdom. Then came the 8th dynasty around 2181 to 2118 BCE. The throne still existed. The scribes still wrote. The decrees still moved through the land. In fragments, like the Coptos decrees, we see the state still breathing, weakened, but not yet gone. The Coptos decrees are a series of 18 royal documents issued over a century, ranging from the late 6th dynasty to the late 8th dynasty, carved into limestone slabs. These royal orders were sent from the capital at Memphis to the city of Coptos. By 2118 BCE, the 9th dynasty rose from Heracleopolis. At Heracleopolis Magna, the necropolis was more than a burial ground. It was a sacred threshold where officials, nobles, and priests prepared for eternity. Here, offerings sustained the spirit, rituals preserved identity, and even in a divided land, the journey to the afterlife remained unchanged. After the fall of the Old Kingdom, Kemet entered a fractured age. From about 2080 to 1980 BCE, the 10th dynasty ruled from Heracleopolis in the north, while in the south, the 11th dynasty, beginning around 2080 BCE, rose from Waset Thebes. This was not an age of silence, but of struggle, memory, and survival. The evidence still remains: tombs, regional inscriptions, stelae, funerary texts, and the expanding use of coffin inscriptions, showing that sacred knowledge did not disappear, it spread. The 10th dynasty preserved kingship in a divided land, but the 11th dynasty changed history. With rulers like Intef II, Intef III, and finally Mentuhotep II, Kemet was reunified by around 2055 to 2009 BCE, restoring central rule and laying the foundations of the Middle Kingdom. Even in fragmentation, Kemet did not collapse. It transformed and prepared for rebirth.
At Hawara, the 12th dynasty left behind one of its greatest mysteries, the labyrinth of Amenemhat III, a vast complex of halls, courts, and chambers, so immense that ancient writers claimed it surpassed even the pyramids. A monument not only of stone, but of order, ceremony, and hidden design. The 12th dynasty is arguably one of the most stable and prosperous periods in Egyptian history. Its significance lies in the restoration of absolute central power and a massive expansion of Egypt's borders. Founded by Amenemhat I, the dynasty moved the capital to Ichtawi and introduced the system of co-regency. This era saw a renaissance in literature and art, alongside massive engineering projects that turned the Fayum into an agricultural powerhouse. Evidence for this dynasty is overwhelming. It includes the pyramids at Dahshur and the pyramids at Hawara, the colossal fortresses in Nubia like Bushan, and classic literary texts like the story of Sinuhe. The 13th dynasty lasted around 1803 BCE to 1649 BCE. Power shifted from the pharaohs to a powerful class of hereditary viziers who provided the actual stability. often considered the final dynasty of the Middle Kingdom. As the central government weakened, Semitic settlers, the Hyksos, began trying to invade towns in the Nile Delta. This caused a fragmented ruling era for the 14th dynasty, because we now have Egypt dividing into two ruled lands. The Hyksos from Canaan ruled in Lower Egypt, and Upper Egypt was still being ruled from Thebes from around 1700 to 1650 BCE. Rather than one unified kings list, multiple lines of rulers emerged at the same time. Local kings, regional courts, and Hyksos leaders, each maintaining their own claims to legitimacy. This political fragmentation helps explain why the kings' lists from this era appear incomplete, inconsistent, and sometimes contradictory. Egypt was no longer governed as a single, centralized kingdom, but as a divided land struggling between foreign control in the Delta and native rule along the Nile Valley. While the north was under rival rule, Thebes maintained a fragile independence. Its importance lies in the survival of Kemetic traditions. Kemetic evidence for this dynasty is found in the Turin king list, which identifies around 15 kings, and in small-scale monuments like the Stele of Nibiriau I. The 17th dynasty lasted from around 1580 to 1550 BCE, the most critical era for the birth of the new kingdom. Its significance is defined by the War of Liberation, a massive military effort to reunify Egypt. Kemetic evidence is robust and dramatic. It includes the mummy of Sekenenre Tau, which shows clear battle wounds, and the Kamosi Stela at Karnak, which provides a first-hand account of the military campaign against the north. This was the climax for the War of Liberation, when southern Kemetic rulers from Thebes united Upper Egypt against Hyksos, control in the north. Through the campaigns of Kemetic rulers, the Hyksos were expelled from Avaris, restoring native Kemetic rule and laying the foundation for the rise of the powerful new kingdom.